So hello and welcome to the Expat Pod. My name is James, your host, and today I'm joined by Maayan. And Maayan, you're originally from Israel, that's correct, and you're maybe living in France. But do you want to give us a quick overview of your, journey of where you've lived and why, and then what you do?
Okay, so thank you so much for having me first, and I'm really happy to be here and to share my journey abroad. So I was originally born in Israel, and when I was 6 years old, we moved as a family to France for the first time. And then basically every 3-4 years, we moved again between Israel and France all my life. This was back and forth, Israel, France, until 3 years ago, I decided to come to France with my own family, my husband, my two daughters, and we now live in France. So for now, we're here.
That's great. I'm sure we'll get into the why and the how you did that in the next section. So welcome to section 1 of the podcast, all about getting there. So, man, this is where essentially I want to know the first of all why you wanted to live abroad. You said you went abroad as a child, so maybe you were just kind of following your parents, so maybe you had less of a say. But coming back as an adult, what was the why? Why did you want to go back? What was it that, manifested that or made you want to pursue that life again?
So as I mentioned before, I moved for the first time as a child and I had no say at all, but I had a wonderful childhood. And what I remember from living in France as a child is a lot of family time, a lot of adventures, a different culture, meeting new people, meeting new traditions was really exciting. And this is what I wanted to offer to my own kids. So I lived in Israel before coming here as an adult for about 10 years. And I always wanted to come back. I always wanted to come back and live as an adult in France. And it took a lot of time to convince my husband to do this crazy move together. But my biggest why was the family time and the opportunities I can offer to my kids living in Europe, living in France specifically, because I remembered my own childhood, and it's nothing like my own childhood right now because it's almost 35 years ago, but it's still, I feel there's a lot more opportunities that I can offer my kids and opening them to a different culture and teaching them to be open-minded and open to different kind of people, different beliefs, different religions, everything. And I think it's super important as a human being to have those skills. And this is my biggest why.
Perfect. And which part of France, of course, are you living in? Because it can be quite different depending on where you go. So I'm curious, which town are you in or city?
So I'm just outside of Paris, and I grew up first at the beginning in a small city outside of Paris as well. But then as a teenager, I lived in center Paris. And this was amazing. As a teenager, I had the best time of my life.
So I'm assuming that when you left, you were quite good at French, was it fluent? Maybe you were fluent, but you had a good grasp of the language as a teenager.
That's very interesting because I thought I was really fluent in French, but then I came back as an adult and I felt that I'm missing a lot of vocabulary. There's a lot of areas that I never spoke French in, like politics, never spoke in French, and understanding the culture and talking to a pediatrician or, another. I never done those things. So I had a basic vocabulary, but I had to learn a lot. And I discovered that my French is actually not that good as I thought so.
I mean, I'm sure it's incredible. It's just you're probably being a bit harsh on yourself because I'm sure most of your life you can probably get by, right? It's just the nuance of things. Like I probably couldn't do engineering in another language, but I can ask for food and drink, which is what most people need the language for, right?
Yeah, but there's so many aspects of life that you don't realize that you don't have the right vocabulary for it. Even getting your internet and having a phone and all, taking the car to the garage, all those things. I never, thought I would need those words, and I had to learn them. But that's fine. That's part of the journey of living as an adult. It's very different than in the life I had when I was here as a child or as a teenager.
When you were growing up in France, did you do French? Were you at a French school or was it an international school?
So when I was a child, first grade was in a French school, first, second, and third grade. So I didn't know French when I came and started school at all. So I started school with zero French. And then that's where I learned most of the French skills I have. And then when I came back as a teenager, I was 14 years old, and then I went to an Israeli school. So it was all in Hebrew, and I had most of my friends were Israelis, and we were speaking mostly in Hebrew. So I did have some out-of-school activities in French, so I did use French, but not as much. And I did learn another couple of years French in school, but it was not a French high school.
Yeah, I guess that's completely understandable. If if Hebrew is your mother tongue, and it's easier for you to do it all, then you're not getting to a disadvantage by having to pass history in French if it's full of a lot of long, complicated words. Wonderful. I guess then when you moved back, did you have French citizenship before you left? So when you come back, it was much easier.
Yeah. So, it's very interesting. I actually just realized, because I asked my parents just before this podcast, hey, when did you get the French citizenship? Because I arrived at 6 years old to France, never knowing I had French citizenship. I never knew I was French and Israeli. And I realized last week that I had French citizenship when I was born. So I have both nationalities, and it makes things much easier for the back and forth. But my husband, for example, is not French at all, and he had to deal with all the French bureaucracy, having a visa and a carte de séjour, and that's a fun thing to do. French bureaucracy is a lot, and because he doesn't speak French at all, I had to deal with it all. So,
but you get a 10-year work permit?
No,
right?
for now, so the first year he got is 1 year permit, and now he has 2 years permit, and then he has to renew them, and hopefully he'll get his citizenship.
And your children then, I guess because the mother was French, it was easier for them?
Yeah, so when they were born, I went to the French embassy and did for both of them the French citizenship. So they are French as well since they were born.
Okay. It's quite fitting. So the father has got French children, but when you moved in, did you know where you wanted to live? Or did you know that the town you're living in now was where you wanted to go back? Or did you search around for jobs when you moved back? What was the kind of process of coming as an adult?
So I knew I wanted to come back to live around Paris. This was my dream. Like, I'm in love with this city. It's it's where I feel at home, really. Paris is really, really expensive to live in, especially with kids. So we looked around Paris a little bit, and then an opportunity came. It's really hard to rent an apartment in France if you don't have a basic dossier, which is, you need to be have a salary and show that you pay your taxes. And if you're just arriving and you never paid your taxes, then you can show it. So it's really, really complicated. And we had an opportunity in this specific city, and we took it. And it's not the dream of Paris, but it's like 30 minutes outside of Paris, and it's good enough for now.
That's great. And in terms of work, then did you have a job lined up, or were you working remotely, or were you working on your current occupation then?
Before coming to France, I had my own graphic design studio. So I was working on my own for about 10 years. And then COVID hit, and I had to close it because I had no more clients. I was doing a lot of events, big corporate events, and during COVID, there was none. So I had to close this business. And then it was just the time before we moved. So it was an opportunity to create something new, to reinvent myself. So I gave myself some time to figure out how I want to do things, what I want to do, and shift my whole career and my whole life.
And then your husband as well, what was it like for him to find work, or what was the story on his behalf?
So his story is really interesting because he's a civil engineer. He's working for an Israeli company, and during COVID, he realized he could work remotely. And then he said, well, if I can work from home, then I can also work from another country. So he basically continued the same job he's doing, working remotely from France. He now has his own French company, but he's still working with the same company in Israel. So doing the same job, working in Hebrew, and doing the same job he knows.
That's great. That's very useful to have that as an option. And then your children, what were they a certain age in school? How did they find the move, or what was the plan for them to kind of integrate in?
So we prepared them very well for the move. So they knew we were moving. It was like I was really getting them excited about something new that is coming, learning a new language, meeting new people, living in a new city, living in a new country, discovering things. They've been to France before, and they were excited. But then they arrived again without any French, zero French, and they got to a French school, both of them. So my older daughter, she's 8 years old, seven and a half, and my youngest, she was almost 5, and they didn't know how to speak French at all. So it was a bit stressful for them, especially the older one. But after 6 months or so, they were speaking fluently. And the older one, she got some help at school. There was a special program where the French education system is helping kids that are not speaking French. And there's a teacher that takes them for a couple of hours every week teaching them. And the year after, she integrated fully, both of them actually. Yeah, it's been very, very good for both of them. They both made friends, and they now speak French better than Hebrew.
I guess that's, do you speak Hebrew at home still then?
We're mixing it up because it was really important for us to help them integrate. So at the beginning, we really tried speaking in French, even at home, watching French TV and reading books in French to help them integrate. And then after they will fully integrate, we tried to keep the Hebrew as well. So we're mixing it up. Their dad is speaking more in Hebrew and I speak more in French. And then, there are some topics. When I get angry, I switch to Hebrew. And when I want to explain something they learned at school, I switch to French. When we're walking outside, for example, in the street or in the bus, I speak in French. I feel it's like more integrated.
That's great. Is there anything else you needed to try and, work out before you made the move? I guess you said you found a place, you were restarting a new career, so there was not an issue in terms of finding jobs. Was there anything else you wanted to kind of think about? Did you have to get the school sorted before your children before you moved as well? Or
I think the biggest thing we had to do before the move is really get them excited about the move. And showing them that it's very, very positive. That there are challenges and obstacles, and the language, for example, and making new friends and saying goodbye. And it's all there and it's okay. We see them, we feel them too, but it's also very, very positive. And we work a lot on this. And we'll get to it later, but that's part of my life philosophy and what we do now today. This is how I live. Challenges are always there, but so does opportunities and positive, and life is like a one chance. I teach my daughters a lot to live their lives and not just struggle and see all the bad things.
Completely. Well, I guess then we can get into section 2 about your being there, which is, I guess, where most of the anecdotes will come from.
Yeah.
So welcome to section 2 of the podcast, all about being there. This is where essentially I want to understand your first impressions. Now, obviously, you lived in France as a child, so I guess you kind of knew what to expect coming back as an adult. However, were there any differences when you kind of moved back? Had you romanticized it in your head and reality is not as great, or because you moved outside of Paris, it's a bit different? What was the kind of initial impression when you moved back?
That's a great question. And I want to go back to the first time I arrived to France as a child, because you got to understand that coming to France from Israel after the Gulf War in the 90s, early 90s, it was a big, huge culture shock. Huge. Everything was so different. Everything was so amazing. As a child, I remember myself like, wow, what this country, everything is so colorful, everything is so shiny, there's so many people, so many different people. I'm gonna say it, but I've never seen colored people before, and I found it fascinating. I was going and speaking to those people. I had so many friends from different backgrounds, and I found it fascinating as a child. And like I said to you at the beginning, we had a lot of family time together, and we went a lot to nature, and nature was like a forest with so many trees and green and water and lakes. What I knew as a child, it was like a desert, couple of trees. It's nothing like I used to see before. And then when I came back as an adult, I had this fantasy of life in France. And well, it's not reality, and I just posted something about it. It's like, you're not a tourist anymore. You're like, living in a country is not all about going to nature and seeing, beautiful museums and walking in the streets and shopping and going to cafes. It's like, it's life. You have to do your laundry and go grocery shopping and take your kids to the doctors. And most of the day to day is pretty routine and nothing special about it. But then when I go out on a weekend on a stroll, sometimes, I have to go to a shop and I roast the sand, and I'm looking around me and I'm like, my God, pinch me. I'm living in this city. And then I'm so happy. And it's about finding this balance, because the day-to-day life is basically the same as I had before, pretty much the same. But then when I realized where I actually live and this is what I wanted, this was my dream, then I'm happy.
In terms of then, grocery shopping is quite a good one, because it's one thing people don't really understand when you move abroad. It's quite difficult to do, because you're probably quite lucky you can speak French. But when I moved to Sweden, I didn't speak much British at all, let alone ingredients in bread. France, only 3 things, so you're probably fine with that. But in other foods you're eating, I guess, especially because I don't know if you're kosher or not. I know a lot of people in Israel are, but some people are. It makes it a bit easier, I suppose, because I know you might have to then go find the correct products in the supermarket, and that could be another headache as well. Your children, for instance, if they're young, they might have brands they like to eat, and kids are not the easiest people to negotiate with, especially when it comes to food. So was that a headache for you initially? How did you kind of get over those hurdles?
Yeah, well, even though I speak French and I knew how to look for things, it's still the supermarket adventure is so different from country to country, and it's placed differently. The products are really different. We eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, and the taste is really, really different. So I'm lucky, and in France there are really great products, but still there are some types of vegetables that I still can't find. It's in a specific market that I need to go, and they eat very seasonal food. So I realized that if I want to eat a good tomato, it's only during summer. You can't find a good tomato during winter. I come from Israel. It's a hot country, warm country. There are tomatoes all year long. There's, like you said, and for kids, there was things that they were used to eating every day, every evening, for example, and everything changed. Or, for example, now they eat lunch at school. In Israel, it wasn't the case. In Israel, a school finishes at noon, and here it's up until 4:30. So they eat lunch at school, and they're not a fan of that. They don't like the food at school. And we had a tough time with it at the beginning. It took us time to adjust. It takes time.
Completely. No, that's a very good point, and interesting how school times between countries change. And then I guess if someone else is looking to move abroad, it's good to know if you're going with a family to understand, will your day be affected by your children's routines and schedules too? Because if you're used to working till 5 and getting your kids after school, after work, so that might be a different story if you change country because of, how every education system works. Going into the kind of language a bit more then. So when you moved second time, did you get any lessons to try and learn the segments of language you didn't really feel confident with? Did you use language cafes or tutoring? Did you try and seek out opportunities to speak that language? Did your husband go and get lessons if he's not fluent in French? Because I guess his day-to-day life has to be in French as well.
This time around, as an adult, I started reading again books and magazines in French before I came to work on my vocabulary. My husband is like, I'm going to get to it later. And he started actually taking classes this year. So after 2 years we were here, he was like, I'm going to speak in English. If they understand, great. And if not, then you'll do the stuff. But now he's taking lessons and he's really improving. So that's great. And I think when he realized that our daughters are correcting his French, and then he got stressed about it and went to take some lessons.
I mean, yeah, it's probably the pride comes out.
Yeah. And it's really hard, and because even me, that my French is pretty fluent, sometimes I see, homeworks of my older daughter, for example, and I'm like, okay, I don't know this grammar rule, and I'll have to go and look it up.
Which gender is the word? Or
no, the genders I know, but the French grammar with all the different times, it's a nightmare. And while I do know how to speak, I'm not always comfortable with the right grammar and in writing, for example.
No, completely. Yeah, I think I didn't realize "Je ne comprends pas" was written as it was. I was like, oh no, yeah. that's not the one. They just knew the word. I learned the phrase when I did a French exchange because it was the most useful one I'd learned. And "Je suis anglais" is the other one. Other than that, my French was quite useless. Apart from "Away la boulangerie," it was also something I thought was quite useful. So then, obviously, you've been living there for a few years. How has that experience been? How have you made friends? For instance, have you joined any local communities to help kind of grow a network? Because going as a family as well, you've got a lot of time inside your home working as a team. You have to somehow have the breathing space to be an adult and have friends. How have you managed that?
Well, I have to say this is my weakest point. I think I've never been good with making friends. Not in Hebrew in Israel, not in French. It's like it was always the hardest part for me. And also, honestly, I don't feel the need for right away making friends. It wasn't my top priority when I arrived. But like at the end of the first year, I tried. I said, okay, my kids are settled. Everything is great. They're playing at the park. There are other moms. I can try to socialize. But it took me 2.5 years to actually exchange some phone number with other moms and to, get invited to someone's house for coffee. So it's really after 2.5 years. So this year was the big breakout, when I realized that I actually know a few people. People are texting me, I'm inviting others, I'm getting invited. It's really recent, so 2.5 years.
Wow. I guess as you said, you've got your network in your family, and that's the most important thing, I suppose. And luckily for you, you have a sibling living there, not far from you. And how long did you, after you moved, did your sister move over?
So,
Or was it the same time?
so first of all my family is here living here because my parents moved from Israel almost 30 years ago and they stayed here. When we, as young adults, kept doing the back and forth, they stayed here in France. So they're living here. And I have another brother who's been living here since as well. And my sister came to France a year before me. So right during COVID. And I came a year after her. So we're living in the same city right now, which is really, really nice. And a lot of my social life is my family, you know, my husband and my daughters, but also my family, my parents, my brother and my sister as well.
So in terms of homesickness, then you're not personally dealing with it too much if your family network's all closer to you, but are you missing anything from Israel, like the weather perhaps? Or...
So I missed a lot of family time when I was living in Israel, when my daughters were born and my parents weren't by my side, and I needed my mother and she wasn't here. And it was really hard for me. But now when I have my family, so I do miss some of my friends back in Israel. I'm not missing the weather because I'm not fit with warm weather. I really like the rain. So I'm happy about the rainy summer in Paris. It's amazing. Everybody's whining about it, but I love it. And
things that much better, right?
It's refreshing. I don't know. There are some things that I missed from living in Israel, but honestly, one of the reasons we left Israel is it became very intense and stressful to live there, and it wasn't healthy for us. So I'm not really thinking about whether I miss things there. There's a couple of people that I do miss. I have a lot of cousins there and a lot of good friends and aunts and uncles. I miss the people specifically, but not living there.
And did you feel more French than you did before? Do you feel like when you were in Israel, that was your time abroad as opposed to being in France?
I think when I lived in Israel, I felt like I was too French for the Israeli. When I living here, I'm too Israeli for the French. I'm not Israeli and not French enough. I'm both. I'm neither. It's like, I don't know. I tried the past couple of years not to say I'm more Israeli or more French. I'm both. Really both. And I feel I am both.
That's great, and great you have, but 2 homes is more than most.
Yeah, I don't know. Right now, those days, I feel more at home in France because of the situations that are happening.
Yeah.
But honestly, I could feel at home in the UK or in Italy or in Spain. One of the things we learn when we move abroad so much, especially at a young age, is to adjust and to adapt yourself to situation. And I can go on vacation for 2 weeks and feel so at home.
That's great. No, completely. And your husband, then, is his family back in Israel, or are they also in France?
So all his family is back in Israel. He's traveling a lot to Israel because he's working. So every other month he's going. So he's seeing his family a lot and seeing his friends a lot and his colleagues as well.
So it's helping him deal with homesickness as well then.
Honestly, I don't think he's feeling homesick. Again, it's really complex these days to feel homesick to this specific country. This is very personal. So I don't think he's feeling homesick, but he misses the specific people. Being there a lot helps.
And how have your children coped with the move? Obviously 2.5 years later on, do you think they're settled in and it was the best decision you ever made? Or?
I feel overall it's a very good decision we made. We gained so much valuable time together. when we were living in Israel, we both worked a lot. My husband was never home. He missed a lot of amazing moments with his kids. And now we are spending a lot of time together. He is taking them from school a lot. He is playing with them at home. We're traveling together. I feel this is something very valuable that we had to do for our family and for our kids, to give them parenting time, and for us to get, our kids. So for that, only for that, it was already worth it. And then, of course, we get so many other things. My new business, I'm closer to my family, a lot of other opportunities we never had when we lived back in Israel. So definitely a great decision. I don't know if it's the best because I don't know what's next to come, but it was a great decision and I'm very happy about it.
Wonderful. That's great. Is there anything else which you've noted in terms of living abroad? We talk about language, culture, homesickness and things. Anything else which kind of stands out as a big change for you since moving?
Yeah, I think you've touched on the culture, which is really, really important and a big change, especially when you're moving as an adult, because as kids, you're really adjusting yourself to what other kids are doing. And really, France is very multicultural, so you can see a lot of different things. But as adults, so when I lived in Israel, I was too French culturally, being more private. In Israel, people are like getting into your privacy, touching, hugging. And I was always, very reserved about it. So I was the different one in Israel. Even as a young adult, as a teenager as well, I was always the weird one. The French snob. But here, I'm like not French enough. So I still had to learn, for example, that if I want to invite one of the friends of my kids back home, for an afternoon, a play date, a birthday party, I need to send an invitation, like a written invitation, a couple of weeks ahead. And it was like, where I come from, Israel, it's like 4 p.m. Hey, do you want to come over with your kids to play? Sure, I'm there in 5 minutes. That's the cultural approach. But here it's so different. And it took me a lot of time to understand that this is the case and not that people don't want to see us. Like, it's not against us. It's like, this is how we do things. So that's just one example, but the cultural difference is very important to know that there are differences and try to adjust. And on the other hand, no, not, taking away all your culture because that's part of who you are. And so I think the best thing that works for me is finding the balance and mixing traditions and mixing cultures. And then showing others that this is how we do. I talked to another mom and I said to her, hey, if you want something, just call me. You can call me. People are SMSing. If they don't know you, they don't even send you a WhatsApp text. It's like SMS. And who uses SMS? And you can call me. That's totally fine. It's like, okay, then. And then she called me.
And you FaceTime back, right?
No, but again, it's like putting yourself out there, bringing your own culture, and then trying to match the local.
You find the mold where you can fit. Yeah. And then I guess my last part of this is your working life. Then, so obviously you've left your business in Israel, started a new fresh thing. First of all, do you want to tell people what it is? And then lastly, how have you managed to build that in France, and how is it being working in France compared to where you've worked before?
So when I had to close my own business, graphic design business, I was already getting tired doing what I did. I loved it, but I was getting tired and I wanted something else. And I was a lot into self-development and personal development and mindfulness and yoga, philosophy, and all this kind of thing. And then when I ask myself, well, now I need to reinvent myself. What do I know best? And I realized that I know best to move abroad and to adjust to a new situation, to a new country, and to approach it in a very positive way. Because I've done it a lot and I've done it miserably because I haven't told you, but there's one move that was the least successful. I moved when I was 21 years old from Israel to France for 1 year, and I was miserable. I tried working here. I tried integrating the French job market, and I realized that I couldn't because I haven't done French studies. I didn't have a degree yet. I was so different and in a different place from everyone else my age that it was really hard. I couldn't adjust. Then I came back to Israel and did a lot of other things. But when I asked myself 3 years ago, what do I know best? I realized that moving abroad is my strength, and doing it positively and successfully is something that I can help others do. So together with my sister Gal, we said, okay, so let's help others move abroad, but do it like successfully and with a smile and actually enjoy this move abroad, because we started talking to other people living abroad and we realized so many people are just waiting for their time abroad to pass, feeling miserable, struggling so much over technical things like a visa or rent or job, where actually we believe that the mindset we have and our approach is crucial for our experience abroad. And this is how Smoothie started, how we wanted to make people abroad smile and enjoy their life abroad. This was our big vision.
No, that's incredible. I wish it was around when I moved, because that's why I started this podcast, because I didn't have any help. And I guess similar to you, different medium, but I wanted to help people learn from other people's experiences. I guess you're providing more of a practical way that they can go and interact themselves with the lessons that are on your app and all the amazing resources that you've, I guess, accrued over time and will continue to accrue. So yeah, it's a really great thing. I'm sure people listening, if you haven't already downloaded it, then do that, because it will definitely help you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we first started, we had to niche down and to choose one topic that is for us the most important. And it was the mindset work and the emotional and mental aspect of life abroad. This is our expertise. This is our biggest, knowledge around. Gal is a positive psychology coach, and I'm a mindfulness coach, and together we bring this aspect of life abroad. And we started with women, helping them to prepare for this move. And then we realized people do need more than that. And it's only when both the technical and logistical part of life abroad and the mental and emotional part, if they're both handled correctly and well adjusted, only then you can have a life you actually enjoy. Because you can have your visa sorted out, you can have a beautiful apartment, a great job, kids in school, a social security number, everything, and still be really miserable. And you can have, a great approach to life and be very positive. But if you're missing your visa, then you might get deported. And that's you need both of them. So this is why we created our app, and maybe we'll talk about it later.
Completely, yeah. I think that's why I have questions-wise for the kind of being there section. So I guess we can go to section 3. So welcome back to the podcast, and welcome to section 3, which is actually untitled, but essentially it's a review of your time. So the first question I always ask my guests is, if you could go back to when you first moved abroad and give yourself some advice, what might you say? Now, I guess with you it's difficult, because do you go back to when you were a child? Do you go back to when you were going back to Israel, or back and forth? But I suggest we go from when you maybe moved as an adult the last time, what advice you might tell yourself there, and then kind of work back? Because it'd be interesting to see how it's changed over time, if it has changed.
Okay, so do you want to, with this move, what I will,
Yes, with the one that's most in your head.
so I would say to myself, don't worry, just keep on doing whatever you're doing great. That's because I was really hesitant at the beginning. Everything was new. It was a new business, a new country, a new school, a new city, everything. The language wasn't new, but everything else was new. And I was really questioning myself a lot. Was it the right move? Is it good for the family? Is it good for the kids? And I had this voice that always told me, like, you're doing it for a reason. I had this really strong why. I knew what my why is, and I just kept going. But I would say, just keep going. Maybe make this voice louder.
And then going to that move when you were 21,
yeah.
what might you tell yourself there? Because you said that was quite a tough time you had, and that's probably the one which people are probably fearing if they're going to move abroad, of how to avoid that experience you had.
That was the hardest one. I wouldn't say it was, well, you tried. It's okay to understand that it wasn't the right fit at the moment, but it doesn't mean like a lost thing. I learned a lot, and I tried, and I failed, but I learned a lot.
Yeah, and you should embrace failure, I suppose. We don't often do that enough, but it's how you grow, right? So, and then I guess there's anything as a child where you went growing up. What was that like? What did you prepare yourself? Do you wish you prepared more? Done some language lessons before you moved, or
no? You know what I would say to my younger self, if I could, I was like, look around you and take it all in, because one day this is going to be your career, and this is your gift to the world after it. So just look around, take it all in, and one day this will help others as well.
That's great. No, that's great things. I'm sure there's parents who are listening to this podcast who might be moving with children and might be in a situation you're in, and it'd be good to know what you might have told yourself as someone who's moved as a child, as a student age, and as an adult. You've done all three. When you get older, you may move to retire, and it'll be a different story again. Might also be back to France, because that's often where people move to for retirement as well. So it's quite a good place to be. Going on to the advice for the people, other than downloading your app, what might you tell people to do as if someone was leaving Israel, for instance? I know right now it's quite a difficult time, but if they were moving away, maybe when you left the last time, what might have you told them?
I think the best advice I could give to someone who's moving abroad is be open-minded. Come really open to everything. You think you know, but honestly, you know nothing. And that's the beauty of it. When you come with an open mind, and you allow yourself to ask questions, make mistakes, meet new people, try new things. This is how your experience abroad becomes an adventure, and this is how you learn. Okay, we're learning every day, all the time, from different experiences. But if we don't come open-minded and we think that this is how things should be, and we miss out on so many things and so many opportunities. So my best advice would be to just keep an open mind.
No, that's great. I completely agree with that. It helps a lot, especially because what you anticipate will happen will maybe half it will happen, or 10% will happen the way you expect it to. Yeah, it goes for all life, right? It's not just moving abroad, but it's probably amplified more because you've not got those safety networks or kind of comforts around you as easily. So yeah, no, it's very good. Open-mindedness is definitely a strength to develop if you haven't already got it. But is there anything in the future for you in terms of, would you move again? Do you have any plans to move, or is France your forever home, so to speak?
I will never say this is my final destination, because I know myself, and I know that I have this bug, and after a couple of years, I would start and feel this need to move again. So I don't know where I'd but I am open-minded and I really don't know, but I will never say this is my final destination. This is where I am, because you can never know. You never know what kind of opportunities will.
Completely. I guess we've already talked about your app and your business, but I don't know if you want to take the time now just to explain a bit more about what it is that people might find if they download your app and how it will help them.
SILA, this is our app. It's an acronym for Simplify Your Life Abroad. We wanted to really bring our users, the app users, the information they need for their life abroad, whether they're moving abroad or already living abroad, in a very simplified way. So it's all video content from different aspects of life abroad. So both logistic, technical, and emotional and mental, from different experts of life abroad. So it's not just us giving the information. We partnered with so many other dozens of experts of life abroad. We interviewed hundreds of them until we found those who can speak about a topic, but make it interesting and simple and nice and with a smile on their face, and give the information like they would give to a friend. We really need this human touch, human connection. Today, with Google, ChatGPT, you can ask things and get the information in a very shallow way, but you can get it. You can start your journey abroad this way. But moving abroad is so overwhelming, and there's so many things you need to take care of that we wanted to bring it all to one place to pick up ourselves, those experts that really give valuable information and not just blah, blah, and then take you 300 euros for an hour. It's like we wanted to bring those people who are moving abroad and have their life abroad be better and more positive and easier, because we know it can be really hard. We know that moving abroad with a family or alone, looking for a job, looking for an apartment, looking for a visa, learning a new language, realizing how you need to pay your taxes, where to grocery shopping, how to make friends, all of this is a lot, and it brings out a lot of stress as well, which keeps people up at night and is bad for us. So we included all those topics, and also, for example, mindfulness that can help you, and hypnosis, and how to navigate stress. And it's the combination of the two sides that will bring a life abroad that people can enjoy living.
That's amazing. And I'm just really jealous I didn't get to have that when I moved, because I still had the mindfulness. I did use balance for a long time, especially during COVID, because mental health was probably at a negative point during COVID for a lot of people. And for me, it was quite difficult. I was going through burnout and things. And meditation and mindfulness really helped me in exercising, just going for long walks and runs. I did use those methods when I moved abroad, but it wasn't the easiest thing to do. It's a kind of the honeymoon period wears off, and you're having to find a place to buy certain things or do your laundry, as I said before, or just finding people to hang out with. Because unlike you, I didn't move with my family on my doorstep the last time anyway. I suppose when you were younger you didn't move by yourself, but I moved by myself, and my girlfriend was still living in the UK, so I had to deal with a long distance relationship, which was very difficult, because you have to make a choice between going out and making new friends or working in relationships you already have back home. So it's a balancing act. And we did a lot of yoga with Adrian via our iPads. It was how we did it, especially in the winter when it's 4 hours of daylight. We would call each other and do a yoga session. So if I had your app, that would have been a bit easier to get to that kind of solution. I will thoroughly encourage people to go and check it out and understand it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love yoga with Adrian. It's really recommended for everyone living abroad, but for everyone. And I think we all have different challenges. Like you said, long distance relationship with one of them, making social life, moving with the families, other challenges. But there are so many things we can take care of to help us deal with those challenges that are the same for everyone. And our mental health is one of them, using mindfulness, learning how to navigate this stress and not burn out after 2 months abroad. We hear so many families breaking down, after 6 months abroad because they don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to speak to each other about their challenges, and they don't realize that they're having the same challenges. And so we have a lot of those topics as well, which in our belief are really, really important and shouldn't be neglected. So the visa is important. It is, check the box, but then go and deal as well with all the rest, because your mental well-being and the way you feel about this move abroad is super important and will impact directly how you experience your life.
Massively so. And yeah, thank you for your passion on the subject of living abroad, and delivering it to this kind of podcast with me and sharing it with me. And thank you, I really appreciate that. And thank you for your time as well. It's your evening in beautiful France right now, which is probably sunny like it is in the UK, which hasn't been very popular recently. So you've missed a lovely evening, and you chose to spend it talking about your passion, which is wonderful to hear. And thank you. And hopefully if you have enjoyed the podcast and you have found an insightful bit of information, please get in touch, let us know. Make sure you follow it and subscribe to it and share it with your friends, but also, check the app out, because it will definitely offer you some advice and improve your experience abroad, because it's never going to be perfect. There are going to be some questions you'll always have, which you could spend 10 hours scouring Facebook expat groups for, when you might find it in 5 minutes with this app. So yeah, hopefully we'll see you next time for the Expat Pod.